This is Indika. She is a nun who everybody hates. But why, I hear you all ask? She looks so kind and gentle. She seems immediately apologetic. She has all the characteristics of a great nun, doesn't she? Well, unfortunately her sisters have come to believe that she has the devil inside her head, and poor Indika is starting to believe them. Here's the kicker though. She isn't actually cursed. She doesn't really have Satan whispering in her ear. She just happens to be an intelligent young woman who has the sense to question what she's being told to believe. She sees in front of her an unfair world where miracles are absent and bad things happen to people. And on top of that, none of the religious people she meets are very nice to her. So why wouldn't she question things? Unfortunately, to a bunch of cold, bored nuns who have been jaded by their lives of servitude, that is exactly what the devil whispering in your ear sounds like. If you watch a trailer for this game, you will probably come to the same conclusion that everybody else did. This has got to be the strangest, trippiest game of 2024.
Our Lord and God and Savior Jesus Christ.
Maybe the last couple of years, actually. I have now finished Indika, and I can confirm it's a pretty weird game, man. Parts of it made me squint at the screen trying to work out what the hell was going on, but just as much of it had me chuckling to myself at its funny moments. I do need to be honest with you though. As weird as this game is, it really wasn't what I was expecting. For something that's marketed as a total freak show, and for something that exudes the absurdity of Eric Andre mixed with the aggression of a Tim Robinson bit, it's actually a well-crafted narrative experience that's bursting with creativity. It has deep themes, it has strong characters and clever writing, environmental puzzles are carefully placed around its levels, and its soundtrack perfectly suits its world, adeptly supporting its pacing at every turn. So if you were to ask me what the strangest thing about Indika is, it probably wouldn't be any of the bizarre, trippy set dressing. It's that, in the midst of all its offbeat chaos, it's really just a story about a young woman grappling with the complexities of religion, and the horrible world she's in won't allow her to do that. In my eyes, Indika is the most creative and thought-provoking video game that I've played so far in 2024, and while I want to highlight some of the amazing things I noticed during my playthrough, it'd be downright sinful of me to spoil too much of its plot. This is a short experience from an independent studio, and it's the exact sort of game I love to show off on this channel, because it tests the limit of what a game can be. While I want to put a spotlight on it, I'm gonna do my best not to spoil too much, and that's because I wholeheartedly believe this is one you really have to experience for yourself. I think my favourite thing about Indika is how it uses its gameplay mechanics to communicate the frustration experienced by its main character. It's a bold move for an indie developer to purposefully make gameplay mechanics more abrasive in 2024, but Oddmeter, the team behind this game, did it with such grace and self-awareness that it makes the whole package better. For starters, if you look Oddmeter up online, the Indika page on its own website describes this game as tedious. And you can really tell the creators want you to slow down, meditate on this game's themes, and otherwise stretch out its roughly 5-hour runtime as long as possible. Indika moves pretty slowly, and while she can run in some areas, it's always where no one else will see her do it. So you'll spend most of the time walking around, especially in villages or when surrounded by judgmental onlookers. To be fair, that fits the character you're playing as. When have you ever seen a nun running around? I also love that moving Indika feels quite clunky, almost like the clothes she's wearing are oppressive, limiting what she can do. For a playable character in a video game, there aren't many actions she can perform. She has a torch which she lights and puts away at a snail's pace, almost in spite of traditional game mechanics that happen immediately to satiate impatient players. She can climb up small ledges, but each mantle feels laboured with a knowing grunt of effort. The left trigger makes her cross herself, which I love. This isn't something she's doing voluntarily, she's being told to do it, and that speaks to her doubts about the religion she's devoted her life to. In contrast, if you take your hands off the controller for long enough, she starts biting her nails, as though she thinks that no one is looking. It can be quite easy to immediately criticize a video game in 2024 that has slow movement and nigh-on unresponsive mechanics, but in Indika, it all feels like a comedic gameplay device that the devs want you to notice. For example, right at the beginning of the game, Indika is tasked with filling up a barrel of water for one of the more senior nuns. So you pick up a bucket, you walk slowly up an icy slope, then across a courtyard. You drop the bucket when you get to a well, picking up the one attached to its chain. You lower that bucket down into the well by rolling the analog stick around slowly, a mechanic from gaming's past that has never worked well. The bucket then reaches the water, and you wind it slowly back up, Indika now struggling to turn the crank due to its extra weight. You empty that bucket into the one you carried here with you, pick it up, and walk slowly back across the courtyard, down the slippery slope, and empty the water into the barrel. A counter then appears on the screen and tells you that you must do this 5 times. So you go again, up the path, across the courtyard, to the well, turn the wheel, empty the bucket, and just as you're thinking, God, this is boring, the narrator pipes up. He tells you that useless labor is the basis of all spiritual development, and that Indika doesn't understand why she needs to do it either. It's a moment that's reminiscent of Bennett Foddy's narration in Getting Over It, and it tells you everything you need to know about the self-aware game design you'll be experiencing over the next 4.5 hours. But it doesn't stop there. If you're sick and tired of games that don't need collectibles, including collectibles, you'll be glad to know that there are collectibles in this game. Mainly all religious artifacts or small candles you can light and say a prayer at. Whenever you find one of these things, Indika earns points. Earn enough points, and she'll level up. Oh, cool, there's a skill tree? Okay, let's see what we can get here. Earn more points now, or potentially get more points when you find them later on? Oh, great, you think. Another game with a pointless skill tree that has no tangible rewards on it. Then, the game flashes up this screen. Don't waste time collecting points. They are pointless. It's then that you begin to realize what the game developers are trying to say. You only earn these arbitrary points by doing things that Indika is told will earn her love from God. Light a candle, do your duty as a nun, don't value possessions, and don't worship idols, but have religious keepsakes in your back pocket. To Christians, these are everyday practices that allow them to be close to God, but to the cynical developers of this game, they're pointless habits that surely won't make an all-knowing, all-powerful deity love anyone any differently. In a scathing teardown of Christianity, this game makes comment on religious practices, but it uses frustrating gameplay systems as the vehicle for doing so.
We killed it.
The dog deserved it. It's bad. It's sinful.
There are no sinners among dogs. Only humans can sin.
The other thing that I want to talk about is Indika's camera work, because more than any game I can remember, the developers here managed to make it a part of the game's narrative design. Cameras are so important in game design, but I seldom see them used for narrative purpose. Most of the time, games pick first person, third person, top-down or side-scrolling cameras based on their gameplay formulas. Indika doesn't really do that though, because although the majority of the game is told in a tight third-person view, it chooses to switch perspectives and visual styles throughout the experience. This makes the world we're invited into seem so much stranger, and to begin with, it's just another weird quirk the developers went with. After rolling credits though, it feels more like another stylistic choice that helps us to relate to Indika more. For instance, whenever we get get flashbacks to Indika's younger days. We get a nostalgic 32-bit visual style and a side-scrolling parallax camera. It works so well for filling in the blanks of Indika's backstory because the broad strokes are there, but the details are hazy, like they're coming from her long-term memory. This is also brilliant because it feels like a reference to how video game graphics have developed over time. Some people prefer this visual style because it reminds them of a golden era of gaming, and that suits Indika's own nostalgia for these days down to a T. When Indika sits down on one of the many benches that are scattered throughout this game and takes a meditative moment to herself, the camera pulls out to wide shots where she sees the world in a more picturesque frame. That is, until we cut to shots that are partly obscured and evoke a feeling that someone is ominously peering around a corner. Given the game's religious themes and its clear disdain for an omnipresent god, maybe these shots represent a feeling of always being watched, always being judged for our actions. I mentioned earlier that this game has a narrator, and it actually turns out that this disembodied voice we hear is supposed to be Satan himself. That's not a spoiler or anything, by the way. The developers even say that in the game's description on store pages. Now, personally, I'm not sure how much I buy into the voice being a literal representation of Satan as a character. I read this demonic voice more as Indika's intrusive thoughts, her doubts that she's trying her best to ignore and pretend aren't there. That's why, to her, it's the voice of the devil, because she's been told so many times by the other nuns that it is. For most of the game, the narrator is relegated to a disembodied voice who has little power over Indika's world, so he continually annoys her with talks about philosophy, fairness, and the value of human life. But towards the end of the game, perspectives shift again, and something truly brilliantly weird happens. Nearing the end of the game, Indika enters a room, and it seems like any other normal room. You walk from one side to the other and realize that the next room you enter looks oddly familiar, except, hang on, this is the wrong way up. You look around, you backtrack, and you realize it's the same room. You've gone in one side, gone out the other, and the world has rotated on its axis as you've done it. It's an impossible space, an unsettling and twisting misconception of reality that makes you feel like you're inside a Rubik's Cube. The goal obviously becomes to get out of this place, but as you turn the camera more and more frantically, you see something out of the corner of your eye. It's revolting, it's cursed, it's making every identical move that you do. The demonic voice has found its body, and at the point of the story where Indika despises herself the most, she fully sees herself as the devil she's being told she is. This is only reaffirmed in the game's final moments, where Indika finally embraces her flaws, and the camera shifts to first person. It was then that I realized that the third-person perspective may have been representing Indika's religious doubts all along. Maybe the window we're seeing through isn't a video game camera. Maybe this entire time we've been seeing through the eyes of the demon, watching Indika, hanging over her every step, reminding her of her past transgressions. In the Bible, there's a passage where Satan is tempting Jesus in the desert. And time after time, he says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," which feels very fitting for Indika here. This sort of game is exactly why I think everyone who plays games, no matter how casually or competitively, should play more indie titles. This sort of creativity can appear in the biggest budget AAAs, but when the main goal is to pad out a company's bottom line, that creativity isn't let loose in the same way as in smaller, riskier experiences like this. Indika's creativity surprised me in so many ways, from its self-aware gameplay to its clever philosophical writing to its visuals that bring the whole thing together. It might not be the most well-known game of the year or the longest, but this is a game that embraces the full creative spectrum that video games have at their disposal, and I really hope that you give it a try. If you're still watching, thank you so much. This was quite a tough game to break down and write about because, my god, does it have its quirks. So tell me this, What is the strangest game you've ever played? Is it a horror game that didn't know where to quit? Was it a self-aware Remedy game or a weird Kojima title bursting with fourth wall breaks? Tell me down in the comments below. If you like this video, I do have more on the way, so hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon will notify you when I put new things out. If you want to talk with me about Indika's religious themes or just keep up with the projects that I have in the works, you're very welcome to join my Discord. The link is in the description, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks again so much for watching, and tune in next time.